Let us read together from Judges chapter 20. Judges 20 and verse 26 to the end of the chapter. This constitutes our text for this morning. It's lengthy, so I won't be reading it again later. Judges 20 verse 26. Then all the children of Israel and all the people went up and came unto the house of God and wept, and sat there before the Lord, and fasted that day until even, and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before the Lord. And the children of Israel inquired of the Lord, for the ark of the covenant of God was there in those days. And Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, stood before it yet in those days, saying, Shall I yet again go out to battle against the children of Benjamin, my brother, or shall I cease? And the Lord said, Go up, for tomorrow I will deliver them into thine hand. And Israel set liers in wait round about Gibeah. The children of Israel went up against the children of Benjamin on the third day, and put themselves in array against Gibeah as at other times. And the children of Benjamin went out against the people, and were drawn away from the city, and they began to smite of the people and kill, as at other times, in the highways, of which one goeth up to the house of God, which was at Bethel, and the other to Gibeah in the field, about 30 men of Israel. The children of Benjamin said, They are smitten down before us, as at the first. But the children of Israel said, Let us flee, and draw them from the city unto the highways. And all the men of Israel rose up out of their place, and put themselves in array at Baal Tamar. And the liers in wait of Israel came forth out of their places, even out of the meadows of Gibeah. And there came against Gibeah 10,000 chosen men out of all Israel. And the battle was sore, and they knew not that evil was near them. The Lord smote Benjamin before Israel, and the children of Israel destroyed of the Benjamites that day 25,100 men. All these drew the sword. So the children of Benjamin saw that they were smitten, for the men of Israel gave place to the Benjamites, because they trusted unto the liers in wait, which they had set beside Gibeah. And the liers in wait hasted, and rushed upon Gibeah, and the liers in wait drew themselves along, and smote all the city with the edge of the sword. Now there was an appointed sign between the men of Israel and the liers in wait, that they should make a great flame with smoke rise up out of the city. And when the men of Israel retired in the battle, Benjamin began to smite and kill of the men of Israel about 30 persons. For they said, Surely they are smitten down before us, as in the first battle. But when the flame began to rise up out of the city with a pillar of smoke, the Benjamites looked behind them, and behold, the flame of the city ascended up to heaven. And when the men of Israel turned again, the men of Benjamin were amazed, for they saw that evil was come upon them. Therefore they turned their backs before the men of Israel unto the way of the wilderness, but the battle overtook them. And them which came out of the cities they destroyed in the midst of them. Thus they enclosed the Benjamites round about, and chased them, and trode them down with ease over against Gibeah toward the sunrise. And there fell of Benjamin 18,000 men. All these were men of valour. And they turned and fled toward the wilderness unto the rock of Rimmon, and they gleaned of them in the highways 5,000 men, and pursued hard after them unto Gibeah, and slew 2,000 men of them. So that all which fell that day of Benjamin were 25,000 men that drew the sword. All these were men of valour. But 600 men turned and fled to the wilderness unto the rock Rimmon, and abode in the rock Rimmon 4 months. And the men of Israel turned again upon the children of Benjamin, and smote them with the edge of the sword, as well the men of every city as the beast, and all that came to hand. Also they set on fire all the cities that they came to. Amen. Last week, beloved, we saw the pain and suffering brought upon the 11 tribes, 40,000 of whom lost their lives in 2 battles against Benjamin. Incidentally, 1,000 Benjamites also died in these first 2 engagements, and you can deduce that from the figures given throughout the chapter. This week it is primarily Benjamin that feels the pain, because it is very nearly wiped out. And this in turn brings further pain upon Israel, and we'll deal with that, Lord willing, next week from Judges chapter 21. What do you do when one of the 12 tribes is almost gone? And all this tells us something about church discipline, the subject of Judges 20, that it is painful, very painful, always painful, and that this is unavoidable. It's tied up in the nature of church discipline. Because sin in the church, unrepented sin in the church, brings God's wrath and chastisement, and He deals with it. Now, in the narrative, the scale of the grief is especially great, because it's not just 1 or 2 persons who are disciplined, or even 1 or 2 cities, but it's a whole tribe, and that affects all of Israel. Our text this morning begins with Israel weeping in Bethel, and it ends with tens of thousands of Benjamite men, women and children dead, with only 600 Benjamites who are left that can weep for them in that tribe. Now, the bulk of our text this morning consists of the 3rd battle between the 11 tribes and Benjamin. The first battle was on day 1. The second battle was on day 2, and the third battle was on day 3. Very simple. 20 verses are given to this 3rd engagement, verses 29 to the end of the chapter, verse 48. And within this passage, we have first of all a general overview of the battle, from verse 29 to verse 35 or verse 36. Harder to draw the lines. And then secondly, we have a more detailed description of the same battle from verse 36 or so to verse 40. And this is a frequently used narrative method in the Bible, and particularly in the Old Testament. A general, shorter overview immediately followed by a more detailed description. This is precisely where the higher critics blunder, and they do blunder. They misidentify the shorter, concise treatment followed by the larger, more expansive analysis as 2 different accounts. And then they try and make the 2 different accounts disagree. And then they proclaim their own peculiar theories of different authors, writing in different places, at different times, for different audiences, and so on. And you scratch your head and think, my God, thou dost make thy enemies foolish.